Retro Static Radio brings you The Guiding Light, originally created by Irma Phillips.
White residence.
Maida, this is Ted.
Yes, Ted.
I was wondering if you wouldn't mind packing a bag for me.
Going out of town, are you?
Yes, I have to be in New York by tomorrow morning. All very unexpected, I'm afraid.
Well, how long do you think you'll be gone?
3 or 4 days at the most.
What time will you pick up your bag?
Unfortunately, I have 101 other things I need to take care of before I leave. I don't think I'll have the time to come home first. Bill offered to pick it up for me.
Oh, I see.
Is Chuckie anywhere around? I should like to talk to him and tell him what's going on.
Ted, what time does your plane leave?
About 5 o'clock.
I'll phone you before then to have Chuckie say goodbye.
Good. Bill will pick up my bag sometime after lunch.
All right. I'll have it ready for you by then. Is there anything else?
I don't think so. Only, don't do anything foolish while I'm gone.
What do you mean by that?
I don't think I have to go into any explanations on that. Take care of yourself and Chuckie. I'll wire you when I expect to be back.
Very well. Have a nice trip.
Thank you, my dear. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
You don't have to wonder, Maida, about what Ted meant when he said don't be foolish. You don't have to wonder, because you know exactly what your husband meant by that remark. And how do you feel about what he said?
3 or 4 days. This is Friday. He warned me not to contact Dr. Hewitt, but I'm not afraid of Ted or his threats. How very opportune his going away at this time.
Dr. Hewitt speaking.
Dr. Hewitt, this is Mrs. White.
Oh, hello, Miss White.
I understand you've finally spoken with my husband.
Yes, I have.
Well, I'd like to make an appointment within the next couple of days for you to be able to see Chuckie.
Just a moment, Mrs. White. No, unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any time to...
Dr. Hewitt, I called you at your office because I didn't want to presume on your time at the Selby Flats Hospital. I know how much work you're doing there.
I cannot see the child for at least 6 months.
You don't expect me to believe that, do you?
Now, please understand, Mrs. White. I consented to see you as a favor to Dr. Bowling.
My husband didn't seem to have any difficulty in arranging an appointment with you.
I was merely attempting to follow through
That's
with...
all I'm asking now. I know Mr. White doesn't want you to see Chuckie, but after all, he doesn't have the entire say when our son is concerned.
To be frank, Mrs. White, I don't think there's anything I could do for your boy.
Dr. Hewitt, won't you please at least talk to him? Perhaps my apprehension about him is unfounded. If it is, I would really like to know.
Well, if I have a cancellation, I'll let you know, Mrs. White.
I don't want to go with that. Can't you be more definite?
I'd like to, but...
Mommy's in the den, Uncle Bill.
I'll phone you in the morning, Doctor. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mrs. White.
Hello, Bill.
Hiya, Maida. Oh boy, it's a scorcher today.
It is rather warm.
I don't envy Ted needing to go to New York in this heat. At least we can count on cool evenings out here. I understand the city is a hot box.
What's a hot box, Uncle Bill?
It's just a very hot place. You know, you little guys are lucky. You never feel the heat or the cold. Matter of fact, I hear guys like you are air conditioned for heat and cold.
I get cold sometimes even when it's hot out.
Oh, Chuckie.
Uncle Bill, Daddy's going to fly to New York City.
Oh, I know.
Is he scared?
Of course not. Why should he be?
I was scared when I was on the plane, wasn't I, Mother?
Oh, you mean when we flew in from Europe?
Yes?
Oh, I guess you were a little frightened. Not too much.
I was scared when we were on the plane to New York, too.
Were you, dear?
Well, there's nothing to be scared of. Do you know, Chuckie, the day is coming where everybody will fly everywhere.
Honest?
Honest. Say, Do you have anything to drink in the house?
Want some ginger ale?
Chuckie, tell you what. Ask Mary to fill a tall glass with ginger ale and some ice cubes. Then you can serve it to your uncle. How's that sound?
All right, Mother.
Well, I wasn't exactly thinking of ginger ale, Maida.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you want?
I could use a scotch and soda.
Well, you're very welcome to it, Bill. But as long as Chuckie offered you a ginger ale.
Oh, sure. Sure. I wouldn't want to hurt the little guy's feelings for anything in the world.
So you're Ted's errand boy now?
What do you mean?
I suppose you're driving him to the airport?
Yes, I was offered to. Maida, I don't envy him that trip this time of year, but it's a pretty big deal. A talent deal, and the New York office wants him to be on hand. I don't know if you realize just how important your husband is to our outfit.
Yes, Bill. I'm fully aware of that.
Uh-huh. Tell me, sis. How are things going?
How are things going? Ted's way as usual.
Well, that isn't exactly what I meant.
That is what it amounts to, nevertheless.
Here you go, Uncle Bill.
Thank you, Chuckie. Aren't you going to join me?
No, sir.
By the way, young man, your dad expects a phone call from you before he leaves. He told me to be sure to tell you that he wants you to talk to you.
We tried to reach him a little while ago, but he was in conference. We left a message with his secretary to be sure to phone us back.
I see.
Chuckie,
Yes, Mother?
why don't you run along to your room, or if you'd like you can go on the terrace.
I think I'll go to my room.
All right, dear.
I'll see you before I leave, Chuck.
I'm drawing a picture for my daddy. Will you give it to him?
Sure thing. I know he'll be very happy to have it. Maida, why did you send the youngster out of the room?
I want to ask you a few questions.
What about?
About this house that Ted would like you to buy in Beverly Hills, Mr. Chambers' home.
Oh. He told you he offered to let me have $25,000 to swing the deal?
Yes.
Well, I think it was darn generous of him.
You can't really think that.
What else can I think?
Bill. Bill, don't put yourself under obligation to Ted.
Now, wait a minute. You're a bit prejudiced on this topic, aren't you?
I don't think so. Ted has a way of placing people under obligation to him, and always for a reason.
What possible motive would he have?
I don't know yet. Bill, I'm asking you to refuse his so-called generous offer.
Honey, I wish I could, but...
But what?
Well, I had a long talk with him this morning. I told him I felt the responsibility was too much for me, that I hated being in debt to anyone over anything. He said I was ultra-conservative.
And?
And I've already banked his check for the $25,000.
Don't touch a penny of that money. Take my advice, Bill. Don't touch a single red cent of it.
It's a little-known fact that the reason daytime dramas are called soap operas are because of the early days of radio. They were sponsored and endorsed by soap and detergent companies. Who are we to break tradition? Today's episode of Retro Static Radio is sponsored by Wood Dragon's Garden. For organic, hyperallergenic, detergent-free, mostly vegan, and frankly just beautiful soaps, please follow the link in the description or go to wooddragonsgarden.com. These soaps come in the traditional square, or you can get them in some special shapes like dragon eggs and skulls. My personal favorite is the lavender bud scent. That's wooddragonsgarden.com with an S after dragon. They also have a Facebook page, so please check them out and get some of the best soap ever, bar none. Miss James,
Yes, Dr. Hewitt?
will you get me the folder on Chuckie White?
Are you going to see the boy this morning, Doctor?
Yes.
You told me to mark that case closed after you saw Mr. White a couple of days ago.
Yes, I know. As far as I was concerned, after I'd spoken with the boy's father, I did consider the case closed. Dr. Bowling, who seems a little closer to this situation than I think he should be, prevailed upon me to see the boy at least once.
Oh.
Just between the two of us, Miss James, I've become curious about the young man.
Here's the folder, Doctor.
Thank you. I've brought a package with me this morning, if you hadn't noticed.
Yes, Doctor. It's quite a large package, too.
I would like you to open it and assemble the various toys on the table.
Yes, sir. What a strange assortment. Evidently, you don't plan to use the usual things you have.
Oh, I want to get a few of those too.
Boxing gloves?
And that plastic tank. Would you mind filling it with water?
Sure thing, Doctor. I haven't read the child's record, but...
If you gave it a glance, you'll know the reason for this unusual assortment, as you call it.
A pocket knife?
You've been my assistant long enough, Miss James. What do you suppose about the knife, the boxing glove, and the water?
Well, if a child is very interested in these things or afraid of them.
Oh, and don't forget the paints, crayons, drawing pad, pencils, and coloring books, and all that. You keep doing what you're doing, I'll get this. Yes. Have Mrs. White wait for a few moments. I'll see her shortly. A small boy waits with his mother in the reception room of Dr. Robert Hewitt, not knowing where he really is or why. I don't know about you, but I'm rather interested in Dr. Hewitt's assortment of toys. I've always wondered how a child psychologist went about discovering the problems of the young, unexpressed problems, problems that undoubtedly can only be determined by a child's behavior. So, this is Chuckie. How are you, young man?
I'm fine, sir.
Good, good. How are you, Mrs. White?
I'm very well, thank you.
Please, sit down, Chuckie.
Oh, Chuckie, look at all the toys.
Oh, you didn't have to bring his attention to 'em.
Do you have a little boy? Are these his toys?
I do have a boy, yes. A little older than you, though. He comes down to visit me every now and again, and when I'm busy, I have these things for him to play with while he waits for me. Mrs. White, don't you have some shopping to do?
Oh, that's right, I do.
Am I going with you when you shop, Mommy?
Oh, no. I don't think you'd be interested in coming with me.
I'm sure you wouldn't, Chuckie. Why don't you stay here with me? I'm sure your mother would be back in an hour or so.
I'd rather go with you, Mommy.
I won't be long, dear. I'm only picking up a hat I bought last week.
Oh, all right.
In about an hour, right, Doctor?
That's right.
Goodbye, Chuckie.
Goodbye, Mother.
Well, Chuckie?
Yes, sir?
I have a few letters I need to sign. Why don't you go over there to that table and amuse yourself? There's even a swell little boat that you can wind up and put in that little tank of water, and it scoots around.
Yes, sir.
A few minutes later, without realizing it, Dr. Hewitt, you're watching him intently, scrutinizing his every action, his every movement. Yes, you've about convinced him that you have no interest in what he's doing, and he's free to amuse himself, confident that you are not watching him. Amazing. He's moved the boxing glove, the tank, and the boat away. And, yes, there goes the knife. He's putting them as far away from himself as possible. I wonder what he's going to... Yes, he's taken the picture book. Very restrained. Even when he thinks he's unobserved. The watercolors. He's evidently settled himself at painting. A strange child. Yet what can one expect under the circumstances? Unless, of course, well, we'll see. Do you have any paints at home, Chuckie?
No, sir, just crayons.
Use them very much?
Yes, sir.
How about boxing gloves? Do you have boxing gloves at home?
Yes, sir.
Like to box, do you?
No.
You mind if I see what you're painting?
No, sir, I don't think it's very good.
Oh, I bet it is.
I don't think so. I can't do anything really good.
Why, Chuckie White, are you trying to kid me?
Oh, no, sir.
Why, I bet anything I know exactly what you're painting on that pad so far.
You mean you can tell?
Of course I can. You're making a picture of the sky and the sun.
Does it look like the sky and the sun, Dr. Hewitt? Do you like it?
And you say this is the first time you've used paints, too. I think it's great.
Thank you, sir.
Now, what are you going to put on the bottom? Water?
Oh, no, sir. I don't know how to make water look.
Oh, it's not that hard. It's a bit bluer than the sky, sort of a green blue. Oh, you've seen the ocean before, haven't you?
I don't remember.
Well, try and remember.
I don't want to paint water. I'll paint grass. That's easy.
Is it because it's easy that you'd rather paint it?
Yes, sir.
You know what I'd like to see you do? My son, Jack, is a whiz at it. He can take a brown crayon and make the best picture of a pair of boxing gloves you'd ever seen. Now, suppose we put these boxing gloves right here so you can see 'em. I'd like to know if you can draw something like that.
No, sir, I can't.
But you haven't even tried.
I don't like boxing gloves. I don't like boxing.
You mean you've been boxing?
I started Saturday and I don't like it. And I'm not going to draw those boxing gloves. Put them on the other side of the table. I don't like them. I don't even like looking at them.
Well, that's all right with me, Chuckie. How about this knife? Would you like to draw that?
No, sir.
You know you can make things with a knife like this. You know, out of wood.
You can cut yourself too.
Oh, not if you know how to use it.
I don't want to.
You don't like boats either, huh?
They can go down and you can drown in the water.
Not if you know how to swim.
Even if you know how to swim, you can still drown. And then you're dead.
You know what I think, Chuckie? I think you're going to be an artist.
Do you, Dr. Hewitt?
Someone who can draw the sun in the sky like that without ever using paints before is definitely an artist.
I'd like to be an artist, but I can't.
Oh?
I have to go to boxing lessons on Saturdays.
Oh, I see. How would you like to take those paints home with you then?
May I?
Sure.
Does your boy paint too?
I think all boys like to paint.
Do all boys like to box and swim?
No, not all. Some do. Why do you ask?
My daddy says all boys like swimming and boxing. It's a must. And if I learn how to swim and box when I'm only 6, then I won't be afraid anymore. I'm not really afraid.
Of course you're not. Chuckie?
Yes, sir.
I have a nice little book over at my desk. I'd like to show it to you. You like books, don't you?
Yes, sir.
There's a very interesting story about this book.
What kind of story, Dr. Hewitt?
It was made for a little boy by a mother and father who had adopted him when he was just a little baby.
Like when I was adopted once?
Well, let's look at the book, shall we? Here we are. Here, take a look at this, Chuckie.
It's a picture book.
That's right. You see, this little boy liked to draw, just like you do. And he started to draw when he was about, 4 or 5 years old. And the older he got, the more practice he had, and the better he drew. Here's a picture he made when he was just as old as you, 6 years old. And over here is a picture he painted when he was 12 years old.
That's a big building.
That's right.
It looks like it's a New York building.
Oh, you've been to New York, have you?
Yes, sir. They have skyscrapers. Have you ever been to New York City?
Oh, yes, quite a bit.
I don't like it there. The buildings are too big. I don't like airplanes either. An airplane crashed into the Empire State Building.
Oh. Well, what I was going to tell you was that the mother and father of this little boy made a book out of the pictures that he had been drawing. And this is that book. Maybe your mother and father could save your drawings. Put them together for you in a book for when you get to be a big boy.
I don't think so.
Oh, why not?
I don't draw good enough. Aunt Charlotte thinks I'm good, though. So does Uncle Ray.
Oh, they do? What's their last name, Chuckie?
Brandon. Once that was my name, while they were taking care of me.
Do you remember when they were taking care of you?
Not really. But Daddy told me that they took care of me because my own mother couldn't. But when she could, I went to live with her. Then I went to live with my daddy and mother.
You said that you were adopted, Chuckie. Was it by the Brandons?
I think so.
Who told you that, Chuckie?
I heard my Aunt Bertha talking to my Aunt Trudy once. Aunt Bertha said that she didn't know if I knew that I was adopted once. Is that bad?
No, of course not, Chuckie. Do you like your Aunt Charlotte and Uncle Ray?
Oh, yes, very much.
Not better than your mother and father?
Not better than my daddy, no. But I really like Aunt Charlotte. I sure do.
Well, Dr. Hewitt, you don't think it's necessary to question the boy any further, do you? You finally formed your conclusions. Conclusions you will not be discussing with Maida White. Conclusions that will only reach the ears of Dr. Ross Bowling. Do you have a little time, Dr. Bowling?
Oh, come in, Doctor. I have a few minutes before rounds. Sit. What's on your mind?
What I have to say won't take too long.
You saw Chuckie White this morning?
Yes, I did, and I wish I hadn't.
Why do you say that?
I think that it is a very involved situation. The Whites, I mean. I'm a little curious, since you're so close to that situation, though.
I told you. I've known Mrs. White for some time, and Chuckie since he was an infant. Took care of him when he was Chuckie Brandon. Does that answer your question?
In a way. Remember, I saw Chuckie because you asked me to. I was warned by the boy's father not to meddle.
Yes, I know.
And from here on out, I don't intend to meddle. That is, unless Mr. White changes his mind about his son.
What did you find out while talking with the boy?
Oh, a great deal, really. Whether you care to pass it along to Mrs. White is entirely up to you. First, I took into consideration all the things his mother told me he was afraid of. So I bought some boxing gloves, a tank of water, a mechanical boat, and a knife. Then I added them to the usual items I work with. Paints, crayons, baseball gloves, all that kind of stuff. I pretended I had some work to finish, and told the boy to go ahead and amuse himself. It didn't take too long for him to separate out the things in which he's mortally afraid of from those which he felt more safe and secure with. The boat, the tank, the knife, and the boxing gloves were all moved to the far side of the table. He then busied himself with the coloring books. That proved to me that Mrs. White had not exaggerated the child's fears of physically being hurt. Then I suggested he try the paints.
Was he interested?
Very much so. The picture he had painted was rather interesting. It was a usual childish interpretation of the sky and the sun. But the funny thing, Ross, when I suggested he paint some water beneath the sky, that went right out.
Why?
He's afraid of water. But more importantly than that fear, he didn't think the picture was any good. In fact, he thinks he doesn't do anything well.
You don't mean to say that he's developed an inferiority complex?
I don't like that term, to tell you the truth. I'd rather say he has a feeling of inadequacy or insecurity.
To what do you attribute this feeling?
He's trying desperately to become what his father wants him to be, and he can't. His repeated failures to try the things he's ill-fitted for makes him unsure of himself. Believe me, Ross, when I tell you that many parents make the mistake of expecting their children to follow a path that they themselves set for their children. It's possible, with doing that they're destroying something individual, something we could call personality or even soul.
But I don't understand, Hewitt.
He wants to do the things his father asks of him. He wants to excel in them, but he's afraid of them.
Now, why shouldn't he dislike his father because of this? Shouldn't he be more prone to cling to his mother?
Well, it's only natural, only normal, that he'd want to follow in the steps of his father. But the child is in constant conflict with his innate nature. The person he resents most in this is himself.
I see.
Now it is possible that if his mother was given a free hand with him, without any interference from his father, that, in time, he'd feel a far greater sense of security with her than he does at the present time. If Chuckie's father would let him alone at this stage in his development, it's very likely, in the normal course of events, the boy himself would want to do some of the things he's so afraid of doing today.
Then domination of a son by his father is Chuckie's real problem.
Oh, I'm not sure that's even half of it. But you know, I did discover something that I don't think either of his parents know about, or even could guess. Chuckie overheard someone else in the family saying that he was adopted at one point.
I can hardly believe anyone would even dare mention the word adoption in front of Chuckie.
Well, he overheard it, Ross. No one told him. And he told me that he didn't like his Uncle Ray as much as he did his dad. He skipped over his mother entirely, but did make a point to tell me that he liked his Aunt Charlotte very much. I think Chuckie resents his own mother.
Why? She adores that boy. Worships him. So you don't think he's made a complete adjustment?
No, I don't think so, as far as his mother's concerned.
I'd imagine that he'd have accepted his mother by this time.
Well, Ross, he'd been told by his father that his mother wasn't able to take care of him when he was a baby. But he does know someone who was. Charlotte Brandon. Now we add to the whole picture one very important factor. The child's intuitive knowledge that there's no love lost between his parents. Ultimately, all I have to say is that Ted and Maida White have to have a greater understanding of their son, or else there's going to be trouble ahead. Plenty of trouble. The future of Chuckie White is in the hands of his parents. Parents that cannot look past themselves to see how their actions affect their child. But that is a tale to continue another time. Next week, Retrostatic Radio debuts the mystery-solving duo of Mr. and Mrs. North. Retrostatic Radio is made possible from the generous donations of listeners like you, so please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com. If you'd like to make a one-time donation, including choosing a movie special, then please go to the Retrostatic Radio page on Ko-fi.com. And if you're a small business, podcast, or just otherwise want your brand on episodes of Retrostatic Radio, please email us at retrostaticradio@gmail.com to discuss our sponsorship opportunities. Sharing is caring, so please, if you enjoyed this or any other of our broadcasts, subscribe where possible, share wherever you can, and please follow our social media pages on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for the latest fun from our social media team, Megan, Dawn, the Squishy Fawn, and Priscilla, the Yarn Dragon. This concludes our broadcast day. Good night, and God bless.